The following podcast has been brought to you by Audible.com. Sign up now using the URL audibletrial.com/TTV to get a free audiobook of your choosing. We recommend Brick by Brick, How LEGO Rewrote the Rules of Innovation and Conquered the Global Toy Industry. You may recognize this as one of the sources we use in our show, Bionicle Autopsy. Remember, that's audibletrial.com/TTV. Enjoy the show.
My name is Merlin P. Mann, and I am the screenwriter for the Bionicle webisodes. You're listening to the TTV podcast, the only podcast for the real Bionicle news.
Yes! Yes!
Oh my goodness!
Yes!
Oh.
Hello, everybody, and
Where'd it go?
welcome to a very exciting event. Today, we're going to be sitting down with the writer of the Bionicle 2015 animations, Merlin Mann. How's life and such, Mr.
Introduce
Mann?
yourself, Merlin Mann. Say hi.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. If I'm stuttering a bit here, it's just because it's such a great honor to be with you guys. I've enjoyed following your podcast, and I'm a bit in awe here, so you bear with me, okay?
Well, thank you very much.
You're in awe.
We're not really used to that. We've never interviewed someone that's actually listened to our work.
Right.
Yeah, that is actually pretty unique, actually. Yeah, I don't think we've ever done that before.
No.
Oh, well, but it's great being here, and I've really been looking forward to it. So even though I'm at risk. I know you guys. You're not.
We're very critical people.
You're not pulling.
Only Meso. Let's be fair here. Only Meso's that kind of guy.
It's pretty
Okay,
much
come
just
on.
me.
He has perfectly good reason to worry. We may influence him with our misinformation spreads.
Oh yeah.
Let me just say this: that if this has to have any value to the listeners, you just can't pull any punches. We're here, for real. So just whatever you want to ask me, you can just go ahead.
Provided you're not under NDA, of course.
Exactly, and that's the one. That's the one thing I have to say. That I'm really sorry, but there are going to be questions where I'm going to be really boring and having to say sorry, can't tell that because I'm still under oath.
Yeah,
It's all right.
it's fine.
We know how that goes.
We interviewed Greg Farshty. We know exactly how that goes.
Yeah, well, but anyhow, I think we need to we need to not pretend or anything, and just ask the questions that come natural and that your listeners want to have answered. So just go ahead.
Fair enough.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I think a good place to start wouldn't be with Bionicle per se, but rather it would be with you personally and how you first got involved with writing. Do you want to tell us anything?
Well,
about
yeah,
that?
I might as well just admit from the start that I wasn't really brought onto this because I know a whole lot about Bionicle. I've been around the guys at especially Advance who are that's the company that's done a lot of the story work for an animation for Barnacle all through the time. And, well, obviously, to your viewers or your listeners, Christian Faber, who was very instrumental in shaping the whole universe. And I've worked around him and Jan Kjær, who you might know as well. He was an art director, sort of the protege of Christian Faber for many years as well. We did a book series together. So really, I've been hanging out with these guys. I've been doing a bit of Lego work in the past, which was more like concept work and early story stuff, mostly on lines that never really happened, but that sort of morphed into other lines. I worked on a very, very early iteration of the Ultra Agents, which was just merely called Agents at that time. But actually, I think the reason I was pulled in on this was because of my though slim but screenwriting skills or experiences. So I went to the Danish National Film School, screenwriting. And then, well, they just knew that I was a geek and that I knew how to appreciate these things. And so the story team as such were already in place when I got involved on this. And I was, well, pretty much probably meant as the guy to sort of shake things up so that they, would would work for people who were not necessarily total geeks about the stories, and sort of try and get the stories to work as simple stories. I started writing about almost 15 years ago, and that was I actually started off writing for Disney and Pixar. That sounds like a pretty rough place to start, but that was actually doing book versions of the whenever the new movies came out. So I did
Right.
I started out with Treasure Planet, for instance, made a book version of that. Did Finding Nemo, did Incredibles, did a whole bunch of those.
Interesting.
And it was great. It was great fun, but it was like it was never my own story or anything. So it was just doing versions of a movie script and turning them into books instead. So that's kind of fun. It's done in Denmark, which is kind of odd. I think the U.S. versions are done in the U.S., but the international versions are written in Denmark in English, which was the primary reason that I got the job back then 15 years ago, because I could write in English, and I knew one of the editors, and then I gave a few tests, and they said, okay, cool, you can come on board. And I worked for them for quite a while, but obviously, as any person with a writer's heart would know, and you probably know a few of those, and are a few of those, but you want to write your own stuff. You want to create your own universes and your own stories. And I got involved in a computer game project. We had a big hit in Denmark with Hitman at one point, IO Interactive, which was actually originally a Danish company. And this was in the beginning of the 2000s, and everybody at that time thought that, this was the way to go. Nowadays it was before the crisis really hit and everything. So creating huge console game titles, XXX titles. That was XXX. Did I say that?
Nice.
I mean, Denmark has quite a reputation to begin with, and I'm not really helping things. That's what they call a Freudian slip, isn't it? No, anyhow. Anyhow, we got into that. Me and, I think we were about 12 guys that had done all kinds of funny stuff. Most of us knew each other from, role-playing games back in the days. And we figured, hey, we're going to do our own console title. That's the way to go. So I don't know how, but we got a lot of people on board. And one of the persons that we got on board was Jan, with whom I worked together very well. I mean, we hit it off immediately. He used to play role-playing games back in the days as well, and I do the stories, and he'd do the art direction, the concept work, and it just it really worked. Apart from the fact that making computer games is really, 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 really tough. So we ended up crashing after a couple of years, and it was just really, really frustrating. We'd spend millions of kroners. Not that much in dollars, but still a lot of money. That was luckily investors' money. So spending other people's money, that's always fun. But still, I mean, we'd wasted 2 years working on this project, and it just crashed. And it wasn't even spectacular. It wasn't like this big crash. It was like a whimper. That's how the world ends. Not in that bang, but in a whimper. And it was so frustrating. So Jan and I decided. I mean, he had his experiences from working with Lego. He'd done a lot of stuff for them alongside Christian Faber, especially, and also on his own. What was the line? They had sort of a mecha line at one point.
Exoforce?
Exoforce.
Yeah, exactly. Exoforce. Jan did most of the artwork on that.
Oh, really?
Cool.
So he was used to working with large concepts, and I was used to working with Disney and Pixar. So we knew how to be professional about it, but we really missed having control. We thought this computer game might be it, but nothing there. So we ended up doing books together instead. We did a series, which was sort of a hybrid between sort of manga-inspired comic books and fantasy novel, which was intended for, the ages 8 to 12, primarily boys who didn't really want to bother with long books and novels and stuff like that. They wanted something easy accessible, but that had that, that epic feeling to it. And it worked out really well. We ended up doing I think 16 books in the series, and a couple of books in sort of the universe, the spin-off series, and sold about 500,000 copies in 13 different countries. So that was really cool.
Well, what's the name of the series?
Nygma. It's been translated to English, but it never really got a release in the UK. Not even close in the US yet. The US, I mean, obviously, there's no need for US publishers to look, abroad for all kinds of books and series because they have plenty. So for a Danish concept, if you want to break into the US market, you really have to have at least a UK version first. So that's what we tried. We haven't really succeeded yet with that, but it's still a going thing.
So you're still working on it now, then? Yeah,
we haven't been putting out books for quite a while now. It's actually our 10th anniversary this year. But we've been working a lot on trying to make animation and stuff like that. But it's this long story just to say that even though. I've been getting into, that I now can live from doing my own properties and my own work and my own books and screenplays and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just fun to be involved with some of the old stuff, some of the stuff that is going to get, out there and going to hit millions of fans and stuff like that. So getting offered to do this for Lego was just a total no-brainer, which was especially a no-brainer because they had me ask, they had me quote what price I wanted, what was going to get paid for it.
Oh, wow.
I really tried to play cool, but everybody knew I was going to say yes no matter.
Nice.
And I have not regretted it at all.
Well, that's wonderful.
All right. Well, that's really cool.
I think if you did write that Treasure Planet book, that's probably I never saw that movie as a kid, but my library had a copy of that book too, that translation thing. So I don't know if you had the hand in the Danish translation of it or the English version that got sent out. But
I wrote the English version. I actually wrote a couple of versions because they always did different kinds of versions.
Right.
They had a readers club thing, and they had a storybook thing, and they had different formats. So I think I wrote maybe 4 or 5 different versions of that book.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, yeah. That's probably my only interaction with that movie has been that. So that's pretty cool, honestly.
I have to say, it was a fun concept. I mean, the whole idea was, of course, to do Treasure Island in space, which was, kind of fun. But to be honest, the story really didn't work. It was far too complicated, and I don't know. It had a really, really annoying comic sidekick, and it was work.
I never even saw that movie.
Well, you didn't miss out on anything.
I remember trying to watch the movie, but as a kid, I didn't really like the art style too much, so I couldn't really get into it. But it seemed like a cool concept.
No, it was at a time with Disney really when they were kind of struggling to find original material and trying to.
Yeah.
This was when Pixar was really they were really exploding and they were just taking things in different directions. Disney had a lot of trouble if they were going to be. Just keep doing the 2D animation style that it always done, or if they're going to start moving into 3D as Pixar had done, and they put out a lot of junk at it.
That's partly the era I kind of grew up in. I remember this period where they did Disney had done all this great stuff, and then the Pixar started doing all this great stuff, and Disney was doing Home on the Range and Chicken Little and Meet the
Atlantis,
Atlantis, and it was kind of they weren't horrible, but they were kind of missing I didn't
really have that charm.
Disney, right?
Yeah,
and they really only came back, I feel, with Tangled and
only recently
Ralph
there's been
and
kind
Frozen,
of a renaissance.
Big Hero 6, yeah. So
I'll have to agree because I lived through that because that was exactly the era that I lived through. Luckily, I got to do both the Pixar and the Disney books. But I mean, the last Disney book I did actually was Meet the Robinsons, which was a terrible script. It was based on actually a quite a cool children's book, sort of a storybook thing, which was illustrated book, which had very beautiful illustrations and stuff like that. But it was this kind of very poetic kind of thing with nice drawings and stuff like that. And they tried to shove that down into a slapstick.
Right.
Yeah, it was very slapstick.
It had nothing to do with each other, so it turned out really bad. And it's probably one of the worst books I did for Disney. I struggled with that. So that was sort of the nail in the coffin on that part of my career.
Wow.
So you really had a lot of involvement with many different things. Sounds
Yes,
like you had a lot of experience.
Well, yeah, or at least I was kind of lucky that I got involved in some of these things that sort of. I mean, to say honestly, my primary experience is being a full-on fanboy. I mean, this is probably what has sort of. It's been an odd career because I started out with role-playing games with Dungeons and Dragons quite early in the 80s, which was right about when it hit Denmark, where I was at. So I was kind of a pioneer in that, and I was like 17 years old or 16. No, I was even younger than that actually, because I remember seeing some guys playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like 11, 12 years old. I figured, this game was just, they blew my mind completely. It shook my world. It shattered everything, and I just had to have that game. But, I was 11, and that game wasn't really anything you could find in normal bookstores. I think there was one shop in Copenhagen that would have these kind of things. So you had to do your own. So I did my own, which I very originally named Magi og Sværd, which translates into magic and swords. So this was sword and sorcery just flipped over. I thought that was really brilliant. I was 11 years old.
Incredible.
But I did my own role-playing game, and that sort of was a geek magnet, of course. So very shortly, or within very short time, everybody in my hometown was just slightly a geek, that was slightly into Star Wars or anything really. They got attracted to this. So from a very early age, I was part of this sort of fanboy culture, subculture, which was for picking up girls, it wasn't that hot, but
I know that feel.
and this is why we guys can talk to each other.
Exactly.
Right.
We don't know each other. We haven't been the same places probably, but we've all been part of this same culture. And even though we might have our differences, some might be into Star Trek, some might be into Star Wars. We can be very different. Still,
some are into neither.
Yeah. In a funny way, long before the internet and long before what everybody would call globalization, we were globalized. We were geeks. We were nerds. And this I think was probably one of the strongest global cultures, first strong global cultures to rise. And today, 30 years down the line, that actually means that a lot of people know each other in strange ways. When I sat down with the guys on the Barnacle story team, most of them I didn't know. I think I knew one or two of them beforehand. But it turned out, obviously, that at least half of us had played role-playing games when we were young. And it was like, that meant that, when we talked about the concepts and stuff like that, we had a common language for it. So it just made things so easy. And it made this feeling of being one big family, one big geek family.
Yeah, it's good to have common ground and things like
connection.
that.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned we probably all have been in the same place. The three of these guys have. They all met up. So, yeah. You know what? Let's meet up. That way we'll all be in an even keel.
Let's have at the TTV convention.
The TTV convention.
It is kind of. it is what you're saying is really true too, because we all live in a different area of the United States. None of us live like I don't think any of us even live in the same state. So that's like it's a common ground for it's just us doing this thing and getting this channel started. That like there's this natural culture to it,
and even larger than that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that Bionicle, the story team, also had this kind of, experience, as well. Did you guys have like any, when you sat down and like your story team together and were like, all right, we're gonna revisit this line? Did you guys have any like direct inspiration? Where you're like, all right, let's do like Skyrim meets Transformers, or like that kind of thing where you're like, oh, I want to draw this.
Skyrim meets Transformers.
I don't know.
I don't think that's the best analogy for Bionicle.
All right, it's Avatar.
I think I understand the question, even though. So, well, actually, as I said, I got pulled into this quite late in the process.
Right.
Which, well, in a way, I would have loved to have been, on it from the very beginning. But on the other hand, I've been involved in, as I said before, I've done very early concept work with Lego before, and it was great. But it was also, a pain to see things die or disappear, or just wait for hours or ages, and that means being pulled into something that you knew was about to happen shortly was had its own appeal, and it was like I had a very focused job to do as a screenwriter. So I was pulled in primarily as a screenwriter, not so much as a story developer. But it was fun, and yes, of course, there's always when you talk about stories, you have to have sort of. You have to have analogies. You have to have a language for it. You have to have metaphors for what you're talking about. And obviously, one of the easy things is to sort of find that common ground, which is why every concept developer talks about Star Wars all the time, because it's such a strong entity, and it makes it really easy to talk about saying, well, I want this guy to be the Han Solo character, or whatever. So obviously that had been part of the talk. At the time when I got onto it, it was like, the storyline was pretty much already there, and it was like, I would say I had a synopsis for each episode, and from there on it was a lot of craftsmanship really on my part, trying to give them give them make them exciting, of course, and they give them a language, give them a feel, give them a sort of a. So I actually got to do that pretty much on my own, and the story development was done by the team beforehand.
Okay.
I guess since you're mentioning your involvement with the story team and your job and everything, I guess it's probably a good idea if we asked you, could you specify exactly what your role is as far as your job with Bionicle and what you do for people that might not be aware?
Yeah, well, I think 25 minutes into the interview, that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm really impressed at the people who actually hung on, not knowing who the F I am. But no, to you, that's now kudos. Anyhow, I'm a screenwriter, or actually, I'm more actually of a writer. Just a book writer. I do a lot of books. I've done screenplay and stuff like that. But for Barnacle, I was hired as a screenwriter, and it was it was a very specific job, because they knew exactly how many episodes they were going to make, how long they were going to be, how they were going to have to be put up production wise. So it was pretty much said and done. That being said, the meetings that I had with the story team, I mean, they were very open to suggestions. Obviously, I came in, and had fresh eyes in a way to look at some of the things, and had suggestions, especially towards the limitations that were there. And well, we developed things from there.
Okay, cool.
Now,
Makes sense.
when it comes to screenwriting for these webisodes, do you write solely dialogue or the entire parameter, like with some guidelines, of course, such as scenarios, character movements, such like that.
Tahu needs to get blank in this episode or something.
Something like that. Well, we actually had to do it pretty fast, and that meant that the storyboard artist worked at the same time as I did. So it was very much a ping pong thing. I wrote full scripts, so I mean, there's a full script for every episode, with with all the remarks that would be there for a normal screenplay or a normal script, and but obviously, I mean, we had to sort of ping pong back and forth and work fast and efficiently. So sometimes, they would say, listen, man, we have the characters are positioned like this. Is there any way we can, keep that? And I'd work around that and make things work the best I could with what the storyboard artists had done, so we could get the animators to work as fast as possible.
That is very interesting.
Did you know, like, when you were brought on, had they been planning, like, where... I don't know if this is covered under the NDA, but could you say if they were doing anything, like, before that? Were they considering, like, a TV show or, like, a movie? Or had they always been like, we want to do web episodes, and this is where...
Yeah, well, I probably should say at this point that what I was brought on to was only the webisodes. This was the only task at hand, and I'm quite sure that the story team obviously has been involved in more parts of what other platforms that were going to be engaged, books and graphic novels and stuff like that. I was never really informed about that, so I didn't know what else was going to be produced. I was only brought in for the webisodes, and that was for at least this one season. Of course, we talked about it because, we had to sort of throw lines. We had to sort of set up things for the following seasons and for the following waves. But actually, I don't know a lot about what's going to happen after the summer wave that's going to come out now. So we have a few things that we set up in the summer wave, which are going to be very exciting and especially for me to see where that actually leads to. But
interesting.
But so far, it does to me seem like that the webisodes was also a way of testing waters, and because it was obviously compared to doing real TV animation and stuff like that, it was it was a whole different budget. It was very, very low budget compared to anything else you produce animation wise. And it had to, we had to move fast and be efficient, which was, fun, but also it was quite obvious that if they were going to be really serious about it, there was going to have to be more to it. Especially because there was just a very clear limit to how much story and how much background we could sort of communicate on the very limited platform that we had. Right. So, but again, now I'm definitely moving into NDA covered territory.
Right. Oh no, tell us more.
Yeah, exactly. One thing is that it's definitely not going to be down from here. They're going to I think if they wanted to test the waters, I think they've tested it now, and I think they've seen that there is a huge future and potential for Barnacle. So I think we can. Be
cautiously optimistic for the future.
Right.
Cautiously optimistic for the future.
Awesome.
Well, that's cool.
Right,
Would you say, like, obviously we have a certain perspective that's different from a lot of people as far as seeing how the community reacts to Bionicle. Would you say that from your experience working with Lego, has it been a success? Has the reboot gone well?
To be honest, I don't know. To be honest, I haven't seen any numbers. I haven't seen any. I don't know how it's gone as a line. All I know is that I've spoken with some of the designers and therefore obviously the story team, and people are happy. I mean, they're very happy.
All that matters in the end.
So
That's good.
I don't know how it breaks down into numbers, but I have a feeling that probably they're. I think perhaps maybe I don't know. They actually had very great focus on the old fan base. They thought a lot about that, mostly because the guys who were the designers were part of the old fan base.
Right.
I think there's no doubt that a lot of people who've been involved in this line, both on the products and on the stories and stuff like that, are all people who are, in a way, feel that they've been part of that community and it's been important for them. On the other hand, I think there's been a very clear idea that it had to be broken into new ground. I mean, there was a new audience out there, and I think perhaps maybe they underestimated a bit how much of the old fan base was still going to be very active with Bionicle. And even though there was a lot of respect for what had been done previously, I think that this sounds like I'm really trying to get out of something because I might be getting into thin ice here. But
Carefully sidestepping the lawyers.
obvious, really? There's no doubt that when you do stories for Lego, obviously it's not like you do Star Wars and then you do a toy line on top of that. It's the other way around.
Right.
The product, the toys are the fundamental.
And I think that's something that a lot of people in the community, especially the younger people, fan base, don't necessarily understand when it comes to story making, is that with this line, it is most definitely the toys are the focus first and then the story after.
There's always been a lot of misunderstandings relating to Bionicle because it's such a unique theme in terms of how the story's delivered. A lot of people don't grasp that concept as well as they perhaps should.
And I think that once again, looking back at what Faber and a lot of the other guys did back then, and obviously Greg at a later point, I mean, it was quite unique, and in a way, it was also one of those strange, rare freaks of nature and the universe and the stars in the right position, that you could do that in that way, and you could create such a massive universe, and you could create such an epic story like the original the storyline was, and perhaps not worry too much about where it was going to go. Don't take it wrong, because obviously it's been down to numbers. It's been down to sales all along. I mean, it's not a charity organization.
Right.
And they make when they do story for a line, it's in order to promote sales of that line, obviously. But still, with Barnacle, it was special. And this time around, it's still because of a lot of the designers and a lot of people behind it. Have this DNA in them. Obviously, it's going to rub off on it, but still, there is a different focus on making it, easy to sell and easily accessible to a completely new crowd, and also, well, I'm not going to sound old and stuff, but kids have changed too. When I was a kid, everybody was into toys, and
absolutely.
And within the past, 30 years, toys it's pretty tough to sell toys. Everybody's into the digital games and their iPads and stuff like that, and being a toy manufacturer is not a safe bet anymore, which is probably also one of the reasons that Lego is now, I guess, probably the largest toy company in the world, because they always sort of have had this focus on, well, obviously, I think the Lego toys and the Legos as such, it's a brilliant toy, and playing with Legos is brilliant. But what they also, and I think this is largely due to something like Barnacle, obviously also Star Wars and a lot of the other licensed things, but they also managed to tap into this culture that we talked about earlier. the subculture, the geek culture, the collector culture, the comic book fan culture. This very, very strong culture, which should definitely not be underestimated. And I believe this is partly why Lego can be so successful, because obviously the sales, I mean, it's not the geeks that generate all the sales that Lego can live off, but kids that get inspired by Lego or inspired by lines, well, they look up to people. I mean, they're so that means that people like you are sort of the first movers. You're the people. You're the ones that kids will look up to, and they'll see. Oh, I've seen all these mocks. I've seen all these special builds. I've seen all these things. I've seen grown people that get into this stuff, and it's like, whoa, this is fascinating. And then it does rub off. I'm quite sure that this makes a difference to the sales that you'll get in the end.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I know a lot of this when we started getting involved in the fandom, we were involved because of the creative aspect it gave us.
Yeah, comics.
Comics for me and LJ were a big deal. And then for even this podcast was kind of a creative endeavor. So that kind of draw to Lego has made it, succeed.
It's all about creativity, be it creativity with the sets or creativity with other media.
Yeah, and there's not really a lot of other toy lines that are really comparable. I think probably the biggest competition is Transformers is probably the only thing I can think of. So Lego's definitely hit sort of this market that hasn't really been tapped by a lot of other toy companies.
It's really you can do your own thing, right? You can make your own thing, and like that.
Yeah, I think that is also a big part of it, is just being able to not only be a part of this fandom and the story, but also be able to take that story and kind of craft your own thing out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, I mean, you guys are I mean, you're adults, but I mean, you'll see a lot of kids that try and do all these things as well. I mean, I've seen it still in YouTube video, and it might be crappy, but my God, it makes me happy every time I see it. I mean, because that means that we've in some way inspired these kids to go and do something instead of just being passive consumers. I mean, we get them out, and this is how we learn. This is how I learned about stories. I mean, yes, I went to the National Film School in Denmark, but that's not where I learned to do stories. Obviously, I mean, I learned the craft of script writing, but telling stories, I learned that from playing role playing games and playing with Legos and playing with all these creative things. And I mean, the special thing about, for instance, the role playing community, or the role-playing game community, was that it had, both adults and kids being there on their own turn, or in the same terms in a way. I mean, you were there. If you created a kick-ass story, I mean, you had a place there. If you had a lot of great ideas, I mean, there was a place for you. It didn't matter if you were 14 or if you were 30 or how old you were. It was the creativity that sort of decided your place in that whole community. And I think, there are a lot of similarities there to the Bionicle community as well.
Yeah. It was very unique.
I kind of want to go back just a little bit towards actually like writing these episodes. And you mentioned that there was kind of like a tight budget. There was a time frame that you had to get things out, so you had to rush and do stuff. I'm just wondering, how did the process ever feel limiting at all? Did you ever feel like you wanted to do things that you just really couldn't do or didn't have enough time to do?
Well, obviously there were limits. I mean, this was sort of the whole setup to begin with. That we have a very limited platform. We have 90 seconds for each episode. We have different things that we have to set up. So what can we do with that? So in a way, it was, I think probably, I mean, if you had been in the process for the whole entire ride, maybe you would have had some sort of frustration on that account. I couldn't tell. I didn't feel that because I was just in for this was just a challenge. And I enjoyed that challenge. I would have loved to do a full TV show or do the Lego movie Barnacle part or whatever, stuff like that would have been fun. But really, that was not the task at hand. It was very much, this is for the web. This is very short. It has to be. And I think, and this might also be common. I think there was a lot of thought put into how these webisodes are going to be shaped. I do think, though, that the whole way we use the internet, the whole way we use the web, just moves extremely rapidly, and the way that it evolves, it's very rapidly. And I mean, just 3 years ago, you probably couldn't imagine doing the things that you do today, and also, we sort of gotten used to if you show something on YouTube, I mean, it has to be really short clips and stuff like that. Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, you could have done longer episodes, I think, if you had chosen to do that. I don't think necessarily that the viewers would have been put off by that. But well, this was the task at hand, and it was really fun, a really fun challenge.
When you originally wrote the episodes, did you know that there would be like just one person doing the voice acting for everybody involved, or did you kind of have the idea that there'd be multiple voice actors when you wrote it?
No, this was one of the limitations. There was going to be just one voice actor, and this was actually, and I'll have to say, I probably have to take responsibility for that, because it was my suggestion then that if there was only going to be one voice actor, we really shouldn't have too many spoken lines. We should maybe try and make it feel more like a story being read aloud.
Right.
The whole storybook thing, which on a concept level sounded like a good idea. The only problem was that when we started writing the webisodes, the lines were just the most fun. And Lego saw that, and they were like, "Oh man, you got to put in more lines. They're so fun." That's how the characters really start to live. And I was like, "Yes, obviously. I mean, with a full-on budget and doing a TV show,
right.
Obviously. I mean, this is how you describe a character. You describe a character through his lines and through his actions." And it was like, but that wasn't really the task we were given. So. In a way, I feel, and it might be hard to see just on the first wave, but when you see the summer wave, I think you can very clearly feel that the emphasis from this sort of storybook kind of concept that we had in the beginning, into being much more like a real animation, still right. With just one voice actor. That movement had gone over there, and right. Well, this is. It's all part of the creative process, and I just hope that probably that has, in a way, helped the whole idea and development towards actually, trying to support this line even more. And right. I don't know when decisions were made to do the graphic novels and to do the storybooks and whatever else is going to come down the line. But I hope we sort of made a kind of proof of concept in a way, and I think maybe that's also a way of looking at the webisodes and at this line here, is that it was, as I said, a way of testing waters and also a way of feeling, well, where are we at now? What these characters, do they still have a lot of life? Do they still have a voice that need to get out? And I would say most definitely. And I would definitely say that the full potential, we've far from reached the full potential of what we could tell of stories with these characters.
Well, as critical as I am of the animations at points, it has to be said that I love them. I greatly prefer the style of the web animations to a potential TV show we could have gotten by Ghost. I think the art style and just the storytelling style works better for Bionicle than Ghost animation would have.
I very much appreciate sort of the classic sort of 2D animation style as well.
Yeah,
everything's CGI nowadays.
They were really honing that in. It was kind of a callback to the Monterey Online game.
Yeah,
and that does come through in the animations.
It does. Right. I also think the decision to have the animations be told as if it's like a storybook is a good one, especially if a single voice actor was a limitation, because it added to that. Because I know a lot of fans when they first saw the episodes or first got into it, a major complaint was, "Oh, Golly has a male voice
Right.
Which, if this was, meant to be told as like a normal animation, normal storytelling, it's kind of hard to excuse that, I guess.
Right.
Because my argument towards those people is always, well, this is meant to be a story. It's like someone reading out a book. So it makes sense that the storyteller would perform the voice acting. And I think that really helps kind of just set the story up and be fun to watch, especially for me.
When you approach it from that mindset, it changes how you view it in a more positive light.
Especially for me, because I've grown up with audiobooks a lot. I remember I used to listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks and hear the voice actor just read off the voices with all these different voices he would do. And for me, that's kind of nostalgic. So it was really cool watching these episodes do something similar to that.
Yeah, I actually have the same nostalgic sentiment towards it, because I listen to storybooks as well and love that. I would say, though, that I can't really blame people for thinking that we more and more try to get into sort of more classical animation scenes or animation sequences, because we did. I mean, it did sort of take a shift towards that, which means that we did sort of end up in in kind of a limbo between, this storybook concept and what should be just, normal animation style, or just normal animation. Well, and I don't know. I think it's part of an evolution in a way. I mean, it's evolving, and I guess sometimes you think that when you work with really large companies like Lego or Disney or Pixar, whatever, then there's always this plan, this master plan that's been thought out by the CEOs and stuff like that, and they've sort of everything is laid out and stuff like that. Well, and that's just very far from the truth. It's a very, very organic process, and I have to say to everybody, you should appreciate the fact that it's still a very organic process, even though you're in big corp land, because that is where creativity, comes from. Meeting obstacles and trying to get around them and trying to invent new ways of dealing with things. Sometimes that means you're going to miss out. I mean, sometimes you're going to fall flat, but it's also from there that the new stuff, the original stuff, and the stuff worth waiting for is going to grow. And I would say this sounds a bit like an excuse, and it's not, but we could, with the budget that we were working on and with the task that we were given, I mean, we could have aimed at just making, commercials. We could have aimed at just making, little, action-packed sequences that were going to be work as ads, really. And the decision was very strongly that, no, we need to tell a story. And I think this was probably a decision from the very beginning and from the top. So even though what we've done with the webisodes was probably, strategically, it was part of early marketing, it still got to be part of the storytelling. And I think that's very important.
Well,
okay, I agree. That's...
I'm very glad you did not just stick with ads and
yeah, I am too.
Yeah, that would have been very unfortunate.
As people that have to do stuff based off, the content that Barnacle puts out, and I'm so relieved. If we had just gotten ads this year, it'd be like this
is what we have to talk about for 12 months.
Yeah, all right, so new on TTV, another advertisement. That was some
speculation.
Material.
Speculation is what we do best, and we can't speculate on commercials now.
No.
Now we
It's
can
like when the
speculate in
Mixels-
their meaning.
The deep meaning behind this commercial.
It's very similar to the Mixels line, which it came out that it was going to have a quote-unquote TV show, and we were going to discuss it, and we were like, cool, another new IP that we can discuss and talk about. Maybe it'll have a story, maybe not, but at the very least, we'll talk about it. Then the TV show ended up being a series of mini clips that played during commercials, filled with, just slapstick humor. And no real plot line. So it was
talk about it, but
it was a very good decision. If you had to do this web animation format, I'm very glad you went that route instead of the other way.
I really like it. It's just it's different than what Lego's done before.
The only thing it really says something that the main complaint is I wish there was more of it. I wish they were longer.
The general thing, I wish we were able to.
If there is a complaint that has to be had, that's a good one to have, I guess.
Yeah, well, and there will be more. There definitely will be more. But I do understand the complaint, and I think it's a very fair complaint because, we were not exactly sure how. I mean, just making webisodes and putting it on the web, that sounds like there's a strategy for it and that everybody knows what's going to happen. I mean, if you put out a TV show, you know pretty much what's going to happen and, you know, when it's going to air and see how many people watch it and stuff like that. But when you're on the internet, and I think this was I actually thought it was a good idea and it was a good way of testing things because then you can see how many people will share this. Will this go viral? Right. Will people, you know, get into it? Will people do podcasts about it and stuff like that? You can interact with it in a different way, and I actually thought that was the strength to this. And I would say that probably with more confidence and probably with perhaps a bit more focus on what the web is actually able to do and the potential in telling stories on the web, which is the interaction of the users. I mean, when you put out a show or you put out a movie, people can you know pretty much just sit there. But if you have a series, an animated series that run on the web, I mean, in a way you get everybody involved in that. And I have to say, I don't want to sound creepy or anything, but I started listening to every Barnacle podcast I could from the very start. So I heard your voices from the beginning.
Oh no!
Oh, beans! Oh,
my mind
I know
was
this is going to
blown.
creep you guys out, but
No, it's not. It doesn't creep me out. I just feel embarrassed. I'm just
Our
I'm
earlier
so
podcast
sorry.
episodes, they do
I'm
not
very,
really hold
like-
up quality-wise.
I'm sorry you had to listen to that.
seriously, I think this is the way that storytellers will have to. They'll have to understand this is the way of telling stories now. I mean, that's going to be the next way of telling stories. Is being in. I mean, is playing role-playing games with the audience or whatever. I mean, sensing what's going on, what are people interested in, and what grabs their attention, and also, I mean, what sprouts new ideas, what creates, you know, new lines, and there's a whole different level of interaction now in storytelling, or at least potential for it, and I think Lego, and especially with the Barnacle line, is the right place to be to sort of evolve on that, or to experience that, and to try and work on that. So
Definitely. The Bionicle team has always had a really good track record of interacting with the fan communities. So I'm happy that tradition's continuing.
I think that's actually like what's kind of impressed me the most about the current line of Bionicle, just kind of versus other Lego themes, is that it seems like they're really trying to kind of evolve and do all these new concepts, especially as far as the internet goes, and like promoting themselves in social media and interacting with the community and stuff. It seems like this is a good step in the right direction.
Which also, of course, and now you guys haven't said it yet, so I mean, which has been very polite of you, but which also means that when you mess up the way that has been done online and with social media, and when you leak stuff at the wrong time, I mean, you are it's quite inexcusable in my mind. I mean, or, in my opinion.
Bionicle 2015 was plagued with quite a lot of leaks.
That is the issue with the internet, though, is just there's so many ways to get info that so you kind of have to just watch your back at every step of the way. And
in Lego's defense, I don't feel like it's just them. I feel like a lot of stuff has been leaking just recently. Like, not even just in the internet, but like, I feel like a lot of trailers leak ahead of time.
Batman versus
like a lot
Superman.
Batman versus Superman.
Age of
Ultron's trailer. I feel like right now a lot of people are catching on to that. People on the internet like loves, and they just sometimes will seep through, and people pounce on that, and it's everywhere before you can get to it.
Yeah, but I mean, leaking is one thing. Actually, leaking can be fun, and believe me, some of the leaks are intentional. I'm quite sure. I don't know.
I told you guys. I knew it.
Where it really messes up is obviously when you're trying to tell a story and you're trying to build up some sort of, storyline and excitement and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden 3 episodes are released and then taken off, and then you'll have what's probably even worse is the waiting time.
Yeah, that
It
is.
is the worst.
All of a sudden you have momentum, and it's just it vanishes. And this, as any storyteller would know, timing is pretty critical to how a story is perceived.
Yeah.
So I mean, this whole idea of trying to build a momentum and stuff like that, and I didn't know, or we didn't. I don't know if someone must have known. I didn't know at the time of writing the webisodes how long it was going to be between the releases. I thought there was going to be way shorter between releases.
Yeah, that's the thing that has confused me the most, and I think kind of boggled everyone here as far as like what's going on. Is because like the release schedule for the episode seems very confusing and hard to follow.
Confusing, and I never saw any strategic plan, because that's a different department. So I don't know what the plan was. But to me, as just a fanboy, not as being part of the whole thing, but just being a fanboy and trying to enjoy it out there on the web, it was just very confusing. And really, I think that, I mean, it's not like it ruins anything. I mean, I still think it was a lot of fun, but it did sort of, it didn't improve the way it felt, or getting the story.
Dampened it.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause, like, what was it? There were 3 episodes in January,
4.
and then it was like 4. Okay, yes, 4.
Yeah.
And then it was almost like 2 a month, and then 1 a month.
Yeah,
And then they got leaked in Czech, and then they got taken off, and then they got leaked in Italian.
To me, that was the most confusing part, is that certain episodes would, like, there were certain countries that would get, like, episodes, like, 3 episodes ahead of the English episodes, or just...
That was kind of annoying.
Yeah, there would just be different languages, and then, obviously, the community being us, we would just pick them apart and translate it, so we'd all know the story before the episodes are even out.
Bionicle, like, has a very strong story following. And, like, any little bit they can get, it's, like, automatically, it's, it's...
Everybody goes into a craze.
Right, and, I mean, people have, I mean, there's theories. I mean, we really, there's only about maybe, I think, 8 named characters right now. There's the 6 Toa, and as far as we know, from all the episodes that have been released, there's, all the Toa, and then Makuta, and then Kimu.
And
But there's already been, like, a bunch of...
Poor Loss.
I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't. I don't know. I don't know if it's just been my blabbermouth that has sort of taken this thing in all kinds of different directions. But we haven't really gotten into the episodes. But I have to admit that, for instance, I mean, a lot of Lord of Skull Spiders. I mean, he really lives up to the Lost label. Lost out completely. I was kind of a bummer.
I've been a champion of his from word go. I want him to put
oh my
more
gosh!
fight.
The only thing
you should have seen it. You should have been there. Walmart, in fact, early leaked some of the sets for sale before any of them got released. And Messo's sitting here like, I'm gonna buy 2 of Lost just because I feel sorry for him.
Nobody